The Osmond family were absolute sensations in the 70s, and their fame has lasted through the decades. Unfortunately, professional success wasn't enough to shield the family from dealing with numerous tragedies over the years. After fighting in World War II, George Osmond sold insurance and real estate and worked as a postmaster in Utah before he devoted his professional life to shepherding the musical careers of most of his 9 children. He initially enlisted 4 of his young sons to make up a precise barbershop quartet, which became a singing quintet with the addition of Donny Osmond. To keep everyone in line, George adopted cold and depersonalized parenting tactics. He assigned each of his children a number, and when 8-year-old Donny wrote a letter home from a tour stop in Sweden detailing his loneliness and homesickness, his father delivered a lecture and struck him violently several times. Donny cites his father's childhood and professional history for making him the way he was. As a boy, George's stepfather abused him and then made him leave the family home when he was a teenager. From there, George became a sergeant in the U.S. Army. As Donny told The Guardian in 2001, "It's easy to blame the parent. I got over that quickly and realized my father is not perfect, but he did the best he could." 3 years after family matriarch Olive Osmond died at the age of 79, George Osmond died of natural causes in November 2007 at the age of 90. After the Osmonds conquered pop music, the family launched the career of Marie Osmond. In 1975, she joined brother Donny Osmond on the ABC variety show Donny and Marie. Production on the series began when Marie was 15 years old, and that's also when she developed an eating disorder following cruel comments from a supervisor. As Marie recalled to Page 6, "I was taken out to the back by some head of the studio, and I'm like 5'5" and about 103 pounds, and he basically said, 'You're an embarrassment to your family. You're fat.' He suggested the show could be canceled because of her appearance and so-called lack of self-control. The tirade sent Marie on a destructive path. As she later told Fox News, "I would literally starve myself for 3 days before taping, drinking lemon water and cayenne pepper with maple syrup so I can be skinny." Already diminutive and slight, she lost about 10% of her body weight and dropped to just over 90 pounds. She realized she was experiencing body dysmorphia after catching a glimpse of herself in the mirror, recalling, "I was in the dressing room, bending over, putting on my pantyhose, and there was a girl in there changing who was just an emaciated skeleton with skin on her. And I just thought, oh my gosh, that's so sick. And I stood up and realized that girl was me." In the early 1970s, Donny Osmond juggled his duties in the Osmonds with a solo career. Without having to share the spotlight, Osmond amassed a string of pop hits geared at fawning teens and tweens. In 1975, the 17-year-old teen idol took his talents to television, starring in the popular variety show Donny and Marie. Staying away from the debauchery and promiscuity long associated with pop and rock stars, Donny began a quiet relationship with a woman named Debbie Glenn. When he was 19, Donny proposed marriage. As he recalled to The Guardian, "When I told my dad, he said, 'Well, there goes your career, but this is ushering in your personal life.'" George Osmond implied that his son's army of very young fans would no longer be interested in following the career of a married man or an established adult. Donny later acknowledged that his father was correct, as following his 1978 marriage, ABC canceled Donny and Marie, and Donny didn't hit the pop chart again for a decade.
79 to 89, from a professional point of view, were the dark years.
In the 1960s and 70s, Merrill Osmond sang lead and played the bass guitar in the Osmonds. A child and then teenager at the time, he dealt with an undue amount of attention from millions as well as the pressure to perform and succeed. That stress manifested in a series of mental health concerns. At the age of 16, he contemplated suicide. As he told The Mirror in 2019, "I had a knife and I didn't want to live because I had no hope." After scaling a mountain near his Utah home, he claimed he was shaken out of his depressive state when a stiff wind nearly knocked him over.
There is hope, and there is a lot of light. We just got to be ready for it when it comes. And destiny came to my door that day.
Several weeks later, he visited a psychologist who diagnosed depression as well as anxiety on account of how Osmond experienced mood swings and periods of mania. At the age of 30, Osmond received a more precise diagnosis, bipolar disorder, from which his father also suffered. Summing up his experience, he said, "The depression has been with me forever. I still have bouts of it almost weekly. I can sit and cry all night, which I've done many times." On top of all that, Merrill developed an eating disorder during his time in the Osmonds, claiming that, like his sister Marie, he believed he was fat and would starve himself. With her second husband, Marie Osmond raised 8 children, including 5 who were adopted. Among them was her son, Michael, who dealt with substance abuse issues and checked into a rehabilitation center in 2007. Within 2 years, his physical health had improved and he found sobriety. However, his mental health issues persisted. In February 2010, Michael expressed his struggles via a phone call with his mother, with Marie later telling Oprah.com, "It was the first time I heard him start to cry and say he was alone, that he had no friends, that he felt despair." Osmond urged Michael to seek out help and told him she'd be in Los Angeles shortly to take care of him. The next day, Michael died by suicide at his apartment. As Marie later said, he had made that decision, I guess. He loved his family, but the pain was too intense.
And that's depression. You know? They fight. I know, I've been there.
After giving birth to her son Matthew, Marie Osmond battled postpartum depression so severe that she later released a memoir about it in hopes of publicizing and demystifying the issue. It took Osmond more than a year to write the book, which was an honest take on her own mental health history. But in her research on postpartum depression, she uncovered a link between the condition and trauma, claiming on Larry King Live that over 90% of people that suffer from postpartum depression have had some form of abuse in their life. She went on to reveal her own trauma, saying, "I was definitely abused, and it was definitely sexual. And you know, those types of things to go through, you think you were over them, but it is the long-term effects of those types of things that you don't even see." A vital member of the Osmonds, Alan Osmond was the oldest singer in the group and co-writer of some of their biggest hits. In 1987, the not yet 40-year-old singer was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a degenerative condition characterized by the brain slowly losing the ability to send signals that takes from patients, in part or entirely, their ability to walk, see, move, and speak. Nearly 40 years later, Osmond is still coping with the symptoms of the disease, telling Caregiving Club, "I was given a cortisone shot when I was first diagnosed, and it just about killed me. I decided there has to be a better way, and I started investigating alternative medicine that would not have the side effects of traditional drugs."
When my dad was diagnosed over 30 years ago, there was nothing. "Here, take some aspirin, come back, maybe we'll have something for you."
Nonetheless, Osmond publicly demonstrated some mobility difficulties in the early 1990s, and a tabloid threatened to reveal his MS diagnosis unless he told his story through them. Instead, on the advice of his friend, he willingly announced that he had the condition on Entertainment Tonight as a public service. In late 2005, Osmond's son, David, also a singer, experienced a host of concerning symptoms, including pain and heaviness in his feet that spread throughout his body, as well as paralysis. Initially diagnosed with pinched nerves, in 2006, a doctor recognized David's symptoms as those associated with MS, and he began treatments. Many of the original Osmond family went on to have large families of their own, and some of those descendants suffered from tragic accidents and fatal health emergencies. Jay Osmond's second wife, Karen, had children and grandchildren of her own, and in November 2014, one of them unfortunately died. In the run-up to a move out of Arizona to Utah to be near multiple other members of the Osmond family, 7-year-old London was hit by a falling trailer door, sustaining injuries that killed her. In November 2018, following a series of arrests and charges for theft and drug crimes and a stay in a drug rehabilitation facility, Troy Osmond was discovered unresponsive at his family's home in Utah. Pronounced dead on the scene by authorities, the youngest son of Merrill Osmond died of a heart attack while sleeping. He was 33 years old. Known initially in the early 1970s as Little Jimmy Osmond, the youngest member of the performing arts family evolved from a 9-year-old hitmaker into an adult musical theater performer under the name James A. Osmond. In December 2018, Osmond starred as Captain Hook in a stage adaptation of Peter Pan at the Birmingham Hippodrome in England. In a frightening moment for both singers and spectators, Osmond fell ill during the show but managed to finish the performance and then sought emergency medical attention immediately after. Doctors at a nearby hospital believed that Osmond had suffered a stroke. 8 months later, older brother Merrill Osmond gave reporters a dour outlook on Jimmy's condition, telling the Press Association, "I think live performances are off the cards. He doesn't want to meet with anybody. The rest of the time, it's basically family and all the space he needs to get better." Fortunately, by early 2020, Jimmy had recovered enough to paint and exercise, and Merrill shared with the Mirror that his condition was improving. The Osmond family included 9 children, and 7 of them eventually found success as professional musicians. The 2 eldest Osmonds, Verl and Tom, couldn't fully participate in musical activities because they were both born with hearing impairments. In recent years, the non-musicians in the family dealt with some serious health issues. In 2019, Verl had suffered a stroke, and Tom underwent quadruple bypass surgery to treat a heart ailment, where complications briefly left him on life support systems. Those weren't the only health problems in the family around that time. Donnie Osmond underwent shoulder surgery in 2019, several months before Marie's daughter, Brianna, delivered a baby girl who spent the first period of her life in a children's intensive care unit. And in the summer of 2020, Jay Osmond had a medical episode, revealing on Facebook that he had suffered a mini stroke. The second oldest of the brothers in the Osmonds, Wayne Osmond, sang and energetically played electric guitar and other instruments in his family band. By the 1990s, he made headlines less for his musical prowess than for his medical difficulties. During a 1994 concert with his brothers, Osmond was hit with a heart attack so severe that he couldn't play the saxophone anymore, nor remain standing up on stage. His family doctor ordered an MRI, and specialists diagnosed a 2-inch-long tumor spotted behind the cerebellum as ependymoma, a form of brain cancer that usually develops in children. After 17 hours of surgery and 6 weeks of radiation, doctors pronounced Osmond cancer-free and admitted that they initially considered his case to be incurable. Unfortunately, he lost most of his ability to hear as a lasting effect of the cancer and the tools used to treat it. In 2012, Osmond reportedly suffered a stroke. 13 years later, he experienced the same medical emergency, but that one would prove to be fatal. On January 1st, 2025, Wayne Osmond died at the age of 73. If you or someone you know needs help with mental health, please contact the Crisis text line by texting HOME to 741-741. Call the National Alliance on Mental Illness helpline at 1-800-950-NAMI, 1-800-950-6264, or visit the National Institute of Mental Health website.